Well, hello everyone. This is, of course, you may have guessed by now, a Mosin-Nagant. Mosin-Nagant's, of course, one of the most ubiquitous rifles of both World Wars, especially World War II. Over history, about 37 million of these have ever been made. During World War II, millions upon millions of specifically 9130 pattern rifles were made. We'll get into the history of this. So, Mosin-Nagant's first made in 1891. Pretty similar to this, actually. The only big differences being there was a longer barrel. The old barrels were about 30.5 inches long, and the sights were different. Mainly the front sight was not hooded, and the back sight was a different adjustment system, and the measurements were actually not in metric, and those were the main differences of those types of rifles. A Dragoon model of that rifle was developed, and then in 1930 they developed the M1891-30 rifles, or just colloquially called the 9130 rifles. Those rifles were, well, it's this, used in World War II especially. Biggest differences, again, hooded front sight, different adjustment system for the rear sights, which were now in metric, and a shortened barrel like the Dragoon rifle at 28.74 inches in length. This gun specifically was actually made in 1943. You can tell because there are markings on the gun. Surprise, surprise, it says 1943 in the Izhevsk factory. Little bit of history on that. So throughout Russian history, there have been two main plants that have developed Mosin-Nagants. The first is the Tula factory near Moscow, and the other one is Izhevsk, which is in the Eastern European regions of Russia. Izhevsk didn't develop as much throughout all of history, but especially with World War II, when the Germans invaded in 1941, the Tula factory couldn't produce very many, not to mention in 1940, they had already ramped down production of the Mosins and stopped making them to start making SVT-40s instead. So Izhevsk was really carrying Tula when it came to developing Mosin-Nagants. This is not a rare rifle. In 1943, 1.8 million 9130 rifles were made in the Izhevsk factory. So again, not rare rifles at all. In terms of other history, this gun is pretty standard. Nothing special with markings. We'll put a little bit up here. Serial numbers match. They're called a forced match, which means some parts were actually changed out over time, but those parts were then put in with the new serial number. So all the serial numbers matched, and you didn't have mismatches on the different parts of the gun. There are 4 places where you find serial numbers on these guns. There is the barrel shank, the bolt, the rear of the butt plate, and then along the bottom of the magazine well. We'll go over all the particulars of this gun pretty quickly, so remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. YouTube does not like gun videos very much, so it helps us out a lot if you do that. So, just kind of going stock, lock, and barrel on this. The stock, the wood, made out of birch. Most Mosin-Nagants were made out of birch. Finnish variants were made out of Arctic birch. These are said to be better when it comes to working in cold weather like we are in now. It's actually not too cold, as you can tell, because I'm not wearing gloves yet. The actual wooden components, I think there's 5 or 6 parts of wood. You have the main stock, which runs up to here. Then you have the top of the handguard, this other part of the top handguard, just very short, and then you have the 2 bottom parts of the handguard which accommodate the cleaning rod. In terms of markings on the stock, there aren't too many. There's a triangle, and I think there's another up top here, but it's really hard to tell what it is. It's kind of just like a box looking thing. There are markings on the bands as well. If you want to remove these, all you have to do is just depress these clips here, take off the bands, and everything comes right off. You can also tell that it's a World War II era stock because of actually the sling loops. The rear one is totally naked here. There's no metal eyelet like there were at beginning and kind of end of the war. And here it's just a metal insert. Again, no eyelet like there used to be, and it's not bare like it is at the very beginning of the invasion. Moving on to the moving parts of the receiver. So we of course have the bolt. The bolt, you know, pretty simple bolt, 90 degree. It's not bent at all like other types of rifles are. In terms of field stripping and disassembly, all you have to do, bring the bolt back, pull the trigger, bolt comes right out. Bolt itself is actually made out of 6 pieces, which we'll show here. The bolt on this gun is actually the dead giveaway that this was refurbished at one point. And the way we can tell is specifically the bolt handle. You can see it's kind of stepped, and that is actually an old design that was stopped in 1936. But this gun was made in 1941. So what probably happened is there was something wrong with the original bolt handle, and after the war, they just replaced it with whatever was lying around and inscribed the new serial number on it. So this is actually a kind of Franken bolt because the rest of the bolt is consistent with a 1943 pattern of Mosin-Nagant. So that's why I think they probably just took off the bolt handle itself. For reassembly, just pull the trigger, slides right on in. There you go. The trigger itself, pretty standard, I guess, long pull, maybe 6 pounds. Gonna ghost it for you right now. Racking this thing, firing pin, it's not hard at all. You'll see whenever we're shooting it, it just seems harder for whatever reason. But once it's racked already, it's very easy to move. That's how we know it's the firing pin spring. That's the issue, quote unquote. Once you lube up all the parts, take apart the bolt, it's very easy. So we'll just pull that trigger one more time. And very gummy. Not a whole lot there, truth be told. The receiver itself, we of course have the barrel shank. That's where you're gonna find all your relevant markings for the most part. We can also tell this was a wartime Mosin-Nagant because it has a circular receiver rather than hexagonal. It's black and it's not finished at all. You can still see machine markings on it, and it is a high wall receiver. It's pretty much just the most expedient yet effective type of design that they could make, and that's why they ran with it. Magazine, 5 rounds, fires the 7.62 by 5.4R round, 5 rounds. Little life hack: if you have a loaded Mosin and you want to unload it without racking the slide over and over, there's just a little latch you pull here, and there you go. Opens up. You can works like a thing of pliers, and you can just put it back in there, and there you go. So that's just another way to load or reload it. This baby does not have a feed ramp because with the Spitzer rounds that it used after the first few years of production, you don't need a feed ramp anymore because the bullet is angled, unlike the other one, which was bottle-nosed. Moving on to the barrel, again, 28.74 inches. This has a 1.95 twist, and I believe there's 4 grooves in the barrel. This gun we know was not counterbored. Counterboring is pretty much you just drill out the last couple inches of the barrel because there's something wrong with the rifling, and you essentially smooth bore the very end because there's something wrong down there. This has not been counterbored. You can tell because you can take a round, put it down this end of the barrel. If the round stops halfway down, then it's not counterbored. If it sinks all the way down to the neck, then it has been. Sights, relatively normal. Again, if you've ever played a video game, you know what the Mosin sights look like. Very shallow notch. Front sight's nice because since it's a hooded sight, it's very easy to kind of find that front post instead of searching for it or confusing it with either of the side prongs. And of course, we have the cleaning rod here, which is, it's got a hole in it so you can stick around in, and you can just twist it on out. It's screwed into the stock down here, works just fine. I've actually never used it. I shouldn't say it works just fine. It attaches just fine. That's pretty much it for the gun itself. If we look at the sling, The sling is similar to Soviet-era slings, so this may have been given to it in the Soviet Union at some point. We know this isn't a wartime sling, probably, according to online forums, because if you look at the leather loops here, they are riveted rather than stitched, and the stitching was done during the war to economize on metal, whereas the metal was put in after the war because it's more secure, and they actually had a little bit more metal at that point. In terms of shooting, this gun shoots high. That is because, in part, when they were tested for accuracy out of the factory, they had a bayonet attached, which changes the barrel harmonics a little bit. So at 50 yards, this thing is going to shoot about 5 inches high. At 100 yards, it shoots closer to 10 inches high. That is a lot. Plus, it's not a free-floated barrel, so if you grab it here versus here, that will actually change where the bullet is impacting a little bit as well. Old Soviet manuals actually say too, at 300 yards or 300 meters, if you aim at the belt buckle, you will get an upper chest shot, so that's probably 15 to 20 inches of rise at 300 meters. I don't have a bayonet for this, so I haven't tested to see how the bayonet changes the point of impact, but just know that it's very likely that your gun will shoot high. Some people want to modify it. They want to, file off the bottom of this sight block here, or they want to raise their front sight here. I just keep it the way it is. You can just lower your aim a little bit. Yeah, okay, so usually with these videos, we talk about how realistic this is. This is a historical weapon, so it is 100% realistic. Again, with the weird exception of the older style of bolt handle. This gun was imported into the US, into Georgia, Vermont, through the Century Arms International? I always screw it up. Century Arms International Company, sometime after 1961, because that's when the company started. There is no online database regarding the serial numbers when this gun may have actually been imported past that. So sometime after 1961, this gun was imported into the United States. Now, we have to talk about how effective is it. Here's some testing. So, we are going to be doing a quick accuracy test with this. This isn't totally scientific, but we have a target right over there, human-sized target with a target on it, I suppose. And what we're going to be doing is we are just going to be shooting this 3 times and then shooting an AR 3 times. It's not totally fair because the AR has an optic on it, so that's going to make it easier, but that just goes to my point. Again, optics are kind of king. Iron sights aren't as great as they are, but we'll see if I can be kind of accurate. That is an unknown distance, probably around 100 yards, but we didn't measure it out. So let's just see what happens. So, okay, we can see, I'll put up on screen how far that actually was, but if you want to come in closer here, you will see all 3 shots with the AR with the optic were on the paper. I only got 1 shot with the Mosin. Now, part of that's just because maybe I suck. Part of it is I did actually have a different stance when I was shooting the AR, which is probably more stable, and you'll notice this is low. So I probably aimed a bit too low when I was compensating. And yeah, so that doesn't mean too much, but definitely if I had to be accurate with one, I'd pick the AR. Okay, so just in case you want to know how far that was, if we're at target here, I'll put a pointer up there.
Rolling. Shit.
So, we know the AR is more accurate, at least for me. What about damage? So we're shooting cantaloupes because watermelons are $9 and I'm not going to pay that. So we're shooting cantaloupes, pretty close range, just like 10 feet, just to make sure we actually hit it. And let's see if there's even a noticeable difference in damage. So you can see that's kind of a big gash there. That was 2 shots, admittedly, but that's from 5.56. So those are the exit wounds from the Mosin-Nagant. You can see these are the entrance. So it actually did less damage to the cantaloupe. Can you see through there? Yeah, you kind of can. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, in terms of damage to cantaloupes, not that much. All right, so for the testing, what did we learn about what I expected? The AR and Mosin are similar in terms of power. Just when we saw with the melons, there's a whole bunch of reasons for that, I suppose, because it's melons. And then accuracy, the AR is much better. So yeah, again, like I said, not a particularly super useful weapon, but still fun. But the Mosin has one advantage over the AR, and that's that it is legal pretty much everywhere. It's not black or plastic or scary, and there's no pistol grips. So, you know, even in countries where you can't get guns as easily, you can probably get a Mosin-Nagant if you jump through all those hoops. But yeah, in terms of just more theoretical stuff, we can talk about the fact that, you know, this is an old rifle. It is not going to stand up to most modern types of guns. Modern hunting rifles are going to outpace this thing in terms of accuracy, in terms of the ability to mount optics, of course. It gets hard to see things with iron sights past a couple hundred yards. So, you know, sights are good. More cushioning is good. This recoil is fine, about what you'd expect. Sucks to shoot prone because it's going right into your clavicle, and it's just a metal butt plate. So that's that. You could absolutely use this to hunt. It's a big enough caliber. Again, it shoots straight if you just know your hold, and you are good with iron sights. You can absolutely use this. It's kind of like, you know, comparing longbow to compound bow. It's kind of like that. You need to get much closer with an iron sights older style gun to your prey than if you have an optic, but of course still much farther away than you would with any type of bow. So obviously it's not fair to compare it to modern hunting rifles, obviously compared to modern assault style rifles. I hate that term, but you get what I mean. You know, Kalashnikovs and AR-15s, this is totally outpaced because any effective range that you could use it at, the other rifles are going to have similar or good enough stopping power, and you're going to have way more speed of accuracy. You have way better follow-up shot capacity, and you of course just have regular capacity that is much higher, and you have less recoil. So just, they're better guns overall. This is not, it's like if I had a choice between an AR or an AK and this, what would I take? AR or AK all the time, right? This is never going to replace a modern style rifle. So I guess the last thing we can compare it to is, what about other Mil-Surp World War II era rifles compared to the M1 Garand, Gewehr 98, the Lee Enfields? It is simultaneously the best and the worst. What I mean by that is, in terms of the quality and the actual accuracy and power, this gun is sort of just middle of the pack to lower end. People will debate this all the time, but you know, these guns were not made to be like precision weapons. They were regular bolt-action rifles at the time. It was Soviet engineering. These are not precise. The tolerances aren't great. You can take this whole thing apart with a flathead screwdriver, which on the bright side means it's easy to tighten up, but it also means they kinda can loosen up a lot easier than with other types of guns. That being said, there is so many of these that it really kind of makes up for it, and it is the king of World War II rifles logistically in the modern day. Part of that is, again, so many were made, 37 million, most of those in the Soviet Union. And when you think about it, this gun kind of gets retired at the end of World War II, gets replaced by the SKS, and then by the Kalashnikov rifles. So very quickly, this gun becomes totally obsolete, And when you have a totally obsolete gun, obviously, you know, for marksman stuff and all that, this still works, but you can't outfit a whole army with this stuff. And even third world countries within a couple decades are like, screw bolt action rifles, we're going to assault rifles. So you have millions upon millions of these guns that were being made in high quantity up until very recently. So there's so many. You can only use so many for marksman roles and sniper roles. I believe the Soviets stopped using this for any marksman niches in 1963, and the Finns stopped producing Mosin-Nagants in 1973. So, but of course, production tanks after World War II. So you have so many, and where do you send them? No third world army wants them. Well, send them to the US because it's a rich market base, and we're not picky, and they're kind of cool guns. So, best place to send your excess obsolete weapons. So as a result, there are many, many of these guns. They are cheaper than most other World War II rifles you will find. You know, an M1 Garand is generally going to go for about $1,000 at least. I bought this for $300. Now, that's on the cheaper end. As of this video, you're probably more likely to find one close, you know, $400 to $600, I think. But I got this for $300. Kind of a steal. Its quality is good. There's a little bit of rust. The finish kind of comes off a bit. I can you know, that's the simple fix. I'm just not a woodworker and I don't want to screw with this gun at all. So I'm a little hesitant, but it's not too bad. Additionally, again, since it's so common, way more parts, easy to replace these guns, easy to work on these guns. And of course, you have the ammo. This fires 7.62 by 5.4R, which is a very common ammo. Even in the US, 30-06 may be similarly common to it, but it's a very common ammo, especially outside of the US. You know, if you go to any militia group in the world, you're gonna find 7.62 by 5.4R because it's used in the Dragunov and it's used in the PKM, light machine gun, or maybe it's a general purpose machine gun, I don't know, but the PKM uses it. So if for whatever reason, it's like, okay, you have to bring one World War II rifle into, you know, and you're just globe-trotting and you might find yourself in a sticky situation and you're not sure if you'll have ammo, what World War II rifle should you bring? Mosin-Nagant, absolutely, because you'll be able to find ammo for it pretty much anywhere where ammo is actually being used. So that's a very niche role that this would be best at. Overall though, if you like history, if you're not loaded for cash, and you like guns that will actually kind of function in whatever you may need them for, you know, target shooting, hunting, home defense, I don't know, this might be a bit much, honestly. It's way too long. The bullet's gonna go through 5 walls and, you know, it's nuts, probably. I haven't tested it. But yeah, so that's the Mosin-Nagant for you guys. Hope you enjoyed. Again, remember to like, comment, subscribe, hit notification bell, do all that fun jazz. Let me know if you want to see more. So yeah, that's it for this video, guys. Hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one, and goodbye.